Nigel Mugamu has always been a storyteller, from carrying around a pen and notebook as a teenager to founding one of Zimbabwe's leading digital media platforms. His journey shows the power of African voices reclaiming their own narratives. Trained as an accountant under his parents' expectations, Nigel's passion for storytelling found new life through the internet and social media. What started as weekly Twitter conversations under the hashtag 263chat quickly grew into a movement. Zimbabweans at home and across the diaspora engaging in honest dialogue about politics, culture, and everyday life beyond the headlines. Today, 263chat has grown into a full-fledged digital media brand. In this episode, Nigel's reflections on the journey, its challenges, triumphs, and lessons reveal just how much it takes to build and sustain independent media in Africa. This is the story of a boy with a pen who became a media trailblazer, of sacrifice and resilience, and of why African storytelling still matters more than ever. My name is Fola Folayan, and this is Minding Your Business Africa. Hey everyone, it's Fola Folayan here. I just want to say a huge thank you for supporting the Minding Your Business Africa podcast. We've officially crossed 2,000 streams, and I couldn't have done it without you. So if you're enjoying the show, please keep supporting us by giving the podcast a 5-star rating on Spotify. It really helps more people discover what we're doing. And I'd love to hear from you directly. So please send me a feedback DM on Twitter. You'll find me at The Favored Woman. Your support means the world. Please let's keep building this together. What was that thing that drew you to working in the media?
You know what? I've always been a storyteller. I was a 15-year-old kid walking around with a notebook and a pen. I still do it. I still handwrite notes despite all the tech that's out there. My parents are both accountants, typical African parents. I'm the older sibling. I'm the only son. There's just my
So you
sister and
have to
I.
follow in their footsteps.
Yeah, so I had to follow in their footsteps, and I was literally pushed into it, and so I did the accounting thing, and yes, I'm an accountant by profession. But I've always been a storyteller, and then the internet, right? So you learn platforms like Blogger, I think there was in the beginning, and WordPress, and now there's Substack and Medium, and all these platforms, and then you realize that you have a voice, you can tweet, you can put stuff on Facebook, and the internet and social media has really allowed us to share our voices and our opinions. And I found myself drawn to my passion. And I consider myself a lucky person because I found my purpose in all of this. Storytelling is very important. I lived overseas for many years. I came back home. And what I realized is our story of our continent is told primarily through the eyes of a BBC or a Deutsche Welle or someone else. And the way the algorithms work, a small publication sitting in whatever African country is not necessarily going to get the kinds of views that BBC Africa would. And so I started to dream of what can we do, and I started what was a discussion platform. At best, that's what it was. I looked at Twitter, and I thought, we could start these Twitter-based discussions on a Tuesday at 6 p.m. local time. And by having these discussions, we would understand ourselves better. And then the outside world would chime in and see what we're saying and talking about. And then that would become a better representation of what they write about when they write about Zimbabwe, because at the time it was literally, writing about Bob, writing about Grace, his wife, and then writing about Morgan, he's now late, the opposition leader. And
Mm.
I always thought, how can you write about, anytime there's a BBC story, you write about these three characters, and then you leave all of us who are the majority out, and Zim can't just be about politics and land
Exactly.
invasion. It can't just be about that. There's more going on the ground. It's not like black people hate white people and vice versa. That's not what it is.
Mm.
And so I wanted to use these free social media tools to tell the story of our country. And I was very, very naive. And yeah, and that was how I stepped into the media space.
I don't think that you were naive, honestly. I think that you had a very, very unique insight into how foreign media platforms position African countries or Africa as a whole. I
Yeah.
think it was a very unique insight. I think it's a view that a lot of people, well, not many people at that time, paid attention to. Now there's been a lot of conversation. There's a lot of awareness about
Mm,
how Africa is viewed and positioned on foreign or Western platforms. But what you had then was a very unique insight that made you question, the information that you were not just being fed, but information that was shared, to the global community in general. And I
thank
think
you.
that it was an opportunity to also show that yes, there's more to Zimbabwe than politics. There's more to
Mm,
Zimbabwe than just the three political characters, that are
mm,
prominent in that country. There's more to our story than what is being
yep,
told. And what you
yep.
did was provide a platform where other voices can be heard. People can have a say and people can be in a position to share their own stories, which I think is a very noble thing, and it's still very much needed because we're still here in 2025 and we're still talking about African stories being told by African voices. So
Mm,
take us on a journey. I want to know how it transformed, how 263 chat transformed from this Twitter dialogue, this conversation based platform to a full-fledged media company. I assume it was quite a journey because we do know that
mm,
it can take a bit,
yeah.
trying to start up a media company. So how did it work? Did you get funding? Did you get financiers? Did you have to crowdfund? Did you use your own money? And what was the process like?
Yeah, no, it was thank you for your kind words there. No, it was a journey. I think it's one day I will sit down and write I don't know, a book, or and I'm actually starting to write about the process now. So I've got a
A
Substack, and
memoir
I'm
would be
trying to,
good
yeah,
and very
I'm
useful.
I'm I'm now starting to um remember and recall and start, I'm sharing the journey as openly as I can. To answer your question, I was sitting in Edinburgh. I went out there to do my MBA, and I continued working in accounting for. I think I was there for 5 years in total. So I did the MBA, and then I just, obviously some life work experience. And so I'm in Edinburgh, and Edinburgh typically is either 2 hours behind Zim or 1 hour, depending on time difference changes. And I'm now in the same time zone as Zimbabwe, and I joined Twitter. And in fact, I joined Facebook before, and but Facebook, you know how Facebook is. You're friends
Yeah.
with typically with people that you already know, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um,
Old
and so
schoolmates,
he's all schoolmates,
family. Yeah.
that kind of thing. And so I didn't know these words, these terms, but I didn't really want to be in a silo of people who already know me and I already know them. And I'm always trying to learn more. Look, I have an inquisitive mind. I'm always, you know, I want to know more about different countries, different cultures, the food. My favorite question is why, right? Why is it like that? Why do we do this? And so, because I'm naturally curious, I joined a platform where I would meet a community of Zimbabweans online. And I'm sitting in the diaspora, the guys are sitting at home and all over the world, right? Zimbabweans are all over the world, South Africa, Australia, Canada, all over. And and so we started talking. You know, we called ourselves Twimbos, which is Zimbabweans on Twitter, like Twimbos, right? And so there was a little hashtag, and so we're talking about general things, the
Okay.
cost of fuel on the ground, what's happening, because obviously back then, we were going through some, difficulty. I was still are going through economic challenges, hyperinflation.
Mm.
Obviously, people are out there trying to help and support their families at home and sending money and stuff like that. And so I found a community of Zimbabweans online, and we just started talking about what was taking place. And it
Okay.
became very clear to me that we don't even understand each other. There's a Zimbabwean sitting in London who's like, the Zimbabweans in Zim are idiots for staying. There's the guy who's sitting here in Zim who's saying, no, you imposter Zimbabwean over there. And I'm like, hang on, guys. Everyone's got a different lived experience. Um,
Mm.
I look at family dynamics. If there's conflict in a family, what is needed initially is a conversation around the conflict and the context and the why, and answering why are we here. So I sort of looked at that simple family dynamic and I just extrapolated it at a national level and said, we don't understand each other as a people. Why don't we just sit here on Twitter? And Twitter wasn't really a popular platform in Zim yet. um,
Okay.
I know that 263 Chat played a role in popularizing the use of that platform as a social media tool.
Mm.
But what I liked about it was, you see, unlike on Facebook, you can write a whole thesis, and sometimes when someone writes a thesis, it says see more, right?
Yes.
And the truth is, we hardly want to see more, right?
Yeah, because people's attention span is very, very short. So it takes a lot to actually get someone to read more than 3 or 4 paragraphs. So if you're writing an entire master's thesis, you can bet very few people will read through it.
Exactly. So I understood that because I just looked at my own behavior. If someone's going, oh man, dear, and I'm like, what is it? I skim, right? So I skim and like, what are they really trying to say? And so I looked at
Yeah.
Twitter because back then I think it was 140 characters or something like that, right?
Yes, it
Um,
used to be 140.
yeah, and I'm a very wordy person, right? So even I have a problem. And so I was like, no, how do we say the thing that we need to say in 140 characters? And so Twitter became the thing. And what I started like literally was something I didn't anticipate that it would take off. I didn't think it would amount to. I didn't have a business plan. Okay, I didn't have a business plan. I didn't think of it as
Mm,
a business at all. I didn't register anything because all it
mm.
was the first one we had, and it's interesting. Today's the 1st of October, so 263 turned 13 on Monday, on the 29th of September.
Wow, 13 years.
13 years, yeah. So,
Woo.
um, yeah,
Amazing.
thank you. So, um, and so it wasn't like a business or anything like that. It was, and then the initial conversation was 4 questions and follow the hashtag. And then I thought, look, if it works, we'll do this twice a month, maybe once a month, right? And then it exploded, and then it
Wow.
became one topic every week. and then the community decided what they wanted to talk about, and all I
Mm.
was a moderator. So
How did they
funding,
decide?
I just got people sending me DMs and look, I want to talk about service delivery. I want to talk about, gender-based violence. I want to talk about politics. I want to talk about, there were lots and lots of different topics. And it was everyday things that we worry about, things that we speak about in a taxi on the way home from wherever we're going. It's things that we
Mm.
talk about in church or family WhatsApp group. It's just everyday stuff that
I like it.
probably probably wouldn't make it to a BBC website, right? Um,
Probably wouldn't
but it
even make it to the pages of the dailies.
Yes, exactly, exactly. So it's just stuff that, that really matters to people. So, it's local service delivery issues in your neighborhood and
Mm.
what can we do about it? It's things to do with education and health. Sometimes it was just, can you break down this national budget document that the government have just released, and they told us in its 157 pages, like, what
Mm.
does it really mean in simple terms for us simple ordinary people, right?
Wow. Yeah.
So that's how, we started to talk about that. And so we drew a lot of people who weren't even on Twitter. And then an organization called Hivos then said, look, can you take these conversations offline and then have offline events? You moderate, we have 3 people, and we have a room full of different people, and we talk about child brides and
Mm.
and 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 different topics, things that really matter to people, right? So we had about, I think, I want to say 22 of these conversations over a span of like a year or so.
Two in a year. So you basically moved from just conversation on social media to an actual live event with people
Yes,
attending.
yes. And also the thing is, I also decide, because the government here is very and was very sensitive about being attacked, right? And then there's a fear of this guy could be you. He might be associated with the U.S. embassy, and so is he CIA? Is he
Mm.
he spent many years overseas. So where was he? What's his
Mm.
agenda? Does he want to set up a political party? Is he opposition? You know what I mean? Like, you got to deal with all those issues. And
Yeah,
all I
because
was
now
trying,
what you've done is you've started gathering a community of people. You have become
exactly.
an influential person that they and you clearly have their ear. So I can see why they
Yes.
would look at you sideways and wonder what your mission really is.
Yes. And it took many years for people to just understand. Like, Nigel's a simple guy. I just want to talk. you know, I just want to talk. Like, we got to talk about it. I don't like sweeping things under the
Mhm.
carpet. I don't like pretending that the issue doesn't exist. My wife knows me well enough to know, like, I don't want to pretend like there isn't conflict. Let's talk about it. You tell me how you feel. I tell you how I feel. Let's move on. And I think in general, sometimes I find that that's what is missing in the world. I mean,
Conversation,
how
engagement.
Exactly. I mean, how do you drive into a church, loaded gun, and then decide I'm going to kill people in this church? Like, what's going on there, right?
Yeah.
Someone,
Yeah.
someone needed to have a conversation with you to say, "Hey, are you sure you want to do this, man? You know, are you?
Before you
What's the
even get to a
motivation?"
place of doing it, perhaps if you had been talking to people, perhaps
Exactly.
those
Ex-
demons, all those things that come to your mind, maybe your mindset
exactly.
would have changed because you've been having conversations, you've been engaging with people.
Exactly, exactly. So, if you look at it at a multiplier, if you use a multiplier effect, before you turn around and say, "Ah, Fola, your English is really good," because I'm sure someone has said that to you, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And they're usually Caucasians.
Right? Someone needed to have a conversation with that, or some research to say, this African lady, right? What She comes from this particular country. What do those
Mm-hmm.
people generally do? What does their curriculum look like? They shouldn't be shocked, right, to meet someone like you, is what I'm basically trying to say,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? You know what I'm saying? So if they did their research, had a conversation with somebody, by the time they meet you, they're not surprised, right?
Mm.
Now we're having a deeper, more meaningful interaction because they're not asking you silly questions about the way you sound and the way you look and
Mm-hmm.
etc. etc. You understand what I'm saying? So that's that. I wanted to kill that so that we encourage dialogue. I'm a dad, right? I'm encouraging the children, especially my daughters, to like talk, voice your opinion, tell me what you think. It's
Yeah.
safe, you are not a second class citizen. You are just
Mm.
as equal as anyone in this room. And so that's how it all started. Initially, we got a bit of grant funding. I sold my car, right?
What?
Yeah, man. I sold my car. Sold my car. I told my then girlfriend, wife, that I'm gonna sell this thing, and she was like, "No, it's
Mm.
okay, babe. It's all good. You can borrow my car."
But do you know that this just further convinces me that
Yeah,
this was a dream that you believed in, and not just that you believed in it, you were passionate about it, and you could see that this made a difference in people's lives. Because for you to sell your car, your personal property, and
yeah,
say, I'm going to
yeah,
invest in this, you could see a
yeah,
future for this. And that's why I believe that it has grown so big and has become like one of the most prominent media brands in Zimbabwe. Because um,
mm,
if you're going to build something, you have
yeah,
to be ready to lay down. I was listening to, a podcast a few weeks ago, one of the biggest tourism companies in Nigeria, and the founder was saying that if you're going to build something as a young person, be ready to make sacrifices. Because if you
yeah,
don't make sacrifices, how do you convince another person to make sacrifices
yeah,
on your behalf? Or how do you convince someone else to believe
yeah,
in the dream when you yourself are not ready to sacrifice for that dream? So
yeah,
I totally, I mean, it's shocking, but I also understand it. Totally understand
mm,
why you would go that far. Now, looking back, looking back from
mm,
those early years and looking into what 263 has become now, do you think
mm.
you could have done anything differently? Would you have done anything differently to probably change the outcome, or would it still be you did? Do you think that, if you had done some odd things, maybe 263 now would be competing with the likes of the BBC or or the CNNs or the Fox News platforms? Do you think?
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, so when I look back, I don't, I think I wouldn't call it 263 chat. I think
Yeah.
I would use a vernacular word that means dialogue, right?
Ah, okay.
Yeah, that's what I would have done. I am now writing about the journey of 263 and some of the less I've learned a lot of lessons. So I no
Mm.
longer work at 263 Chat anymore. The company's there. There's a team there that run the business, and I'm still on the paperwork. There's the 263 Chat guy. I work somewhere else now, and I do other things. So I wish I had a co-founder because
Right.
we don't speak about. I mean, you mentioned the guy, the Nigerian guy speaking about having to make sacrifices. Entrepreneurship is a very lonely journey. Many sleepless nights wondering how do you pay people on time in an environment where the economy is unpredictable, and there are many challenges, politically and economically. I wish I had someone, yes, my wife was there holding my hand, reminding me to get up, and reminding me of the vision that I had, from in the beginning, and always cheerleading. I had an unofficial board of advisors, people I would sit around and have a barbecue with, and that helped me with
And
strategy
just
and
bounce
stuff like that.
ideas off. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, bounce some ideas around. We had a group of people from outside, inside, advertisers. So we started to generate revenue in the first 6 months. Yes, we had a grant, but we started to like, hang on, this grant isn't going to last forever. So how do we make money? So we really reverse engineered what a typical newspaper has and looked at the adverts that they had, and then I was the business development guy, but I was also the finance guy. I was a sales guy. I was, and I went to try and get those adverts and say, no, we can tweet this advert for you. We can put it on our website. We can put it on our Facebook. However, what I like about what we built, right, is if you were to give me resources right now and say, build the BBC for Africa right now,
Yeah.
I know exactly what needs to happen. I know how I
Okay.
would do it. Yeah, I know how I would do it. Building an organization from the ground up in a difficult environment with hyperinflation, different currency changes, and then saying,
Mm.
listen, here's 20 million. Start with the BBC version of Africa. I would know exactly where I would want to put it. I would have certain offices in certain regions. I could come up with a business plan. So I've learned a lot. I've
Mm.
learned a lot about what sustains media organizations. Right now, I'm very passionate about media sustainability because that's very critical. I understand the role of the media in development, right, in a country, in countries like where we are from. Yeah, I mean, there's some things I would change, but then I would want to do this on steroids and grow it, like he said, to be, just as influential as a Fox News or a BBC or whatever. Yeah.
I want to talk about, the media landscape in Zim right
Mm,
now.
mm,
I mean, Zim has a complex political and economic environment. So
mm,
I'm curious how digital media companies operate. How would you describe the current media ecosystem? What are the opportunities? What are the challenges? How has this unique set of circumstances affected the way media companies operate right now? I mean, with all of the lessons that you've learned and the experience
mm.
that you have, what do you see at the moment?
You know what I see? I see a lot of so Zimbabwe, unfortunately, right? And this is one of the things that I wanted 263 to try and fix. Zimbabweans, we're highly polarized. We're a highly polarized society. So if you not with the government, you are anti-government. And it's like, no, 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 no.
Hmm.
I can agree to disagree. Like, I don't think life is black and white. I actually think that
No, it's
there's
not.
a lot I think there's a lot of gray and there's a lot of different shades of gray,
I
right?
agree.
In the
Yeah.
in the middle, right? And so I am the kind of person who looks at government policy and say, look, yeah, I can see the policy document makes sense, but the implementation is questionable. Here, government messed up, and here they're trying to fix it. I can see it quite clearly, but I've found that a lot of people, I don't know, we lose our common sense sometimes. So, yeah, no, 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 no. I
Mm.
must set up this media organization that is aligned with government because I'm a tenderpreneur and I want to
Yeah.
show government that I'm aligned and I've got allegiance to the government. So I'm gonna set up, so you find there's a lot of there's some publications that are
Mm.
clearly not genuine publications because they support this political party or they support this political party. So they become like a mouthpiece for the party as opposed to genuine news. Um, we had a coup, not coup in 2017 when Mugabe stepped down. Some of those changes, the remnants of that shift, the change, we're dealing with that right now. We have a secret service system that wants to know who you are and what uh, you know, they're always collecting information, always aware of what's happening. I met a
Mm.
guy just last week, just just meeting up just to talk about something. I was wanting to show him something. He wanted to buy something from me, so I went to show him the thing, I said, "Oh, yeah, yeah," and he said, "But I know who you are."
Oh yeah?
Yeah, no, I know who you are. And he didn't threaten me, right? you know, but he was like, "Nah, man, look, you're cool. You're a cool guy." But yeah, I could tell like he's one of those guys. He's one of those security people. You know what I mean?
That is so weird.
But it's something that happens, here. So some stories are difficult to publish here in Zim. So if there's if there's corruption within the Zimbabwe National Army and you write about it, someone is going to tell you, "Hey, that's enough. Calm down."
Hmm.
You see? So
Does that mean that independent media does not thrive? Does that mean that it is difficult to finance or to fund independent
yes, yes.
media?
Yes, yes, it is. So if you think about any country, right, the largest, typically the largest employer is government, right? The
Yeah.
largest advertiser is usually government. So what happens is
Mm.
if government wants to advertise these tender like a tender opportunity, supply, I don't know, laptops to, whatever department, they're going to put that in the state media, right? And keep
Yeah.
the revenue in that ecosystem. Now, if you are a 263 chat and you write about the truth and you say, no, government is cool today on this particular issue, but then tomorrow you write a seemingly anti-government story because you wrote about something that they got wrong, you're not going to get
Mm.
government advertising revenue.
And private companies, you can't depend on revenue coming only from private entities, can you?
You see, it's also difficult if there's a tight squeeze in terms of finances and companies are struggling to pay salaries and some companies are downsizing and some companies are growing, you know, and there's also a currency because we have a local currency, but we also use the US dollar. So you're going to go to a private company, negotiate for an advert or a campaign.
Mm.
Sometimes it's in US dollars, sometimes in local currency. If the local currency is hit by inflation or devalues, that's going to affect the value of your invoice. If that continues to go on, we suffered over the years with that. You bill someone
Mm.
today, by the time they pay the invoice, that invoice is worth a tenth of what it really
Yeah,
was.
the value of the money has changed.
Yes. So sustainability is a massive issue. We don't have a culture yet where, like in Nordic countries where they've got subscription models, people understand that you got to pay for high quality journalism. Typically on our continent, we expect to receive the news and information for free, and we forget that there's a cost to go do I mean, you and I know how much it costs to do an investigative story.
Yeah.
Costs a lot of money, right? So yeah, there are challenges, but we got to figure out business models that work for the continent, and I think that is.
Do you think you figured out a business model for that works? Let's say for Zim especially. Do you think you have it figured out?
I'm actually trying to study. If I'm being honest, I'm actually trying to study because I have come up with some ideas. I think there's some learnings from different countries. I can't go to Nigeria, copy paste what the premium time does and bring it across. I've got to
Hmm.
understand the premium times in Nigeria, in and understand the nuance, understand the context, come back with the idea, change it, adjust it to, Zim, and then implement it in stages. But in terms of, to answer your question, do I have some ideas? Definitely, I have some ideas. I mean, like, so if you look at the Daily Maverick in South Africa, these guys have got a membership plan, right? And they've got their readers who typically understand the value of what they do. You understand. So the readers understand without this publication, we wouldn't know about this corruption scandal that is affecting our lives, right? sometimes as media practitioners, because we're so busy running organizations that we don't tell this. This is probably a problem that 263's done, right? We don't tell the impact of what we did. To say, we wrote this story, you guys were informed, you went to the elections more informed, but we're the ones who told you what was going on, right? And so because we told you, could you please buy us a coffee to keep the operation going? You know what I mean? I find that generally African publication, and I'm generalizing, massively generalizing here, we forget to include the audience and the community around the publication. And the examples of what other new publications are doing. Some you can publish online, but once or twice a year, you bring people together physically, and you have a gathering of some kind where there's an event. It's a part fundraising event, part showcasing what we do. People get to ordinary readers get to interact with the editor around specific topics and stories. All of that helps to humanize the publication and show that there are real people who need these resources. And sometimes it's not about asking Fola to donate $10,000. Fola might have $5, right? And if we get 15 Folas to give us $5, now we got a little bit more, you know what I
A
mean?
little
And
bit of
that,
money. Yeah.
yeah, we got a little bit of money. And if they can do that on a consistent monthly basis, man, that could pay for one or two journalists. You see? So I think that there's so many lessons that I'm seeing. I mean, I'm looking at, like, right now, today, like, using Substack as hang on a minute, Zeteo News, like the guy in the States.
Yeah.
He puts a 4-minute video and he says subscribe, right?
If you want to
To
watch
watch
the
the
entire thing. Yeah.
you see. So and when I look at what he's asking for, he's not asking for $1,000, right? He's saying, hey, give me $80 for the year or whatever. You know what I mean?
And I think that one of the reasons why, these subscription-based models work is,
Yeah.
one, if you have been able to successfully build a loyal community, of
Yes.
readers, of audience
Yes.
members, then
Yes.
but then again, trying to move this loyal community into a
Mm-hmm.
paying community, because sometimes
Yes.
I had a friend who had a Substack that was very successful. It
Yep.
was going into hundreds of thousands of monthly, weekly readers, but he
Mm.
had a problem transitioning that loyal audience into a paying audience. I realized that it's
Mm-hmm.
most likely, most of the time, it would work when you have the kind of content that keeps people coming back. And
Yes.
also letting that audience know that it's not cheap or free to make these content, or to gather these reports, or to investigate these stories. Because sometimes people understand that, oh, you're doing a fantastic job, but they are not so willing to pay for it. So I think being able to strike that emotional chord within your audience, that's how you get them, to buy into a subscription model situation.
Yeah, no, I hear you, and I think there's some opportunities that we're not thinking about. I mean, as Africans, we have those in the diaspora, and they are all over the place. I remember many years ago, over 10 years ago, I went to Guangzhou in China. I was attending a fair, the Canton Fair, I remember. And I met some Nigerian brothers, right? And I'm like, what are you doing? And like, no, I live here. What? And you're right. And I
Nigerians
was,
live everywhere.
man, my people are all over. And I was like, man, okay, so we had a chat and whatnot. But though some of, you know, generally, right? And we're generalizing. Sometimes our brethren who are all over the world, have ties to back home, and sometimes they have more resources than some of us who live here. So if you ask them to support specific stories, if you broke down and said, we would like a group of those in the diaspora or whoever to help support our health stories, I'm sure someone would be like, you know what, how much do you need? Right? They may not want to support political stories because that's complicated, right? And
Yeah.
there may be ramifications for doing that. And they obviously some people don't want to be seen as supporting either side or whichever political party. But if you speak
Mm-hmm.
about health, education, and essentially things that affect and touch people every day, I think there are ways of generating some sort of membership around that, you know. But once again, it's about consistently reporting and then also producing high quality content that they don't get from anywhere else.
Mm.
You see, so there are ways. It's not easy, but it is possible. It is
But it can
definitely
be
possible.
done.
It can be
Mm.
done. Be done. Yeah.
Before I let you go, Nigel, I want to ask that if you had to advise young Africans or young Zimbabweans in general on
Mm,
starting a digital media company today,
mm.
what three major lessons would you share?
Yeah. That sounds like a Substack article that's waiting to be written right there. Uh, there's an organization called Uncommon, and they are building these hubs in across the country in high density areas. In other words, on the other side of the railway track. And so I'm a mentor for these two young girls, right? And so I speak to them every week, and I've never met them, but we talk on the phone. And one of them wants to set up. So they're studying, it's like tech, like graphic design, UX design, social media management, like things like that they can then do online and possibly remote work, right? I think that's how this
Okay.
this organized. Yeah. And so Kirsty, one of the girls, I spoke to her last Friday, and she asked me this similar question because she's now interested in setting up an agency with a friend of hers. So I said, look, it's a good idea. I can see what you're trying to do. Unemployment is high, so you're trying to create. Because I think she's coming to the end of the training. Because it's a year, it's a training for the year, and so she's coming up to the end of it. For anyone starting a digital anything, right? I'd say first and foremost, think before you tweet. Think before you put things on Facebook, right? The internet remembers. If you're trying to set up something that's digital, someone's going to Google you, right? And so whatever you
Yeah.
said, whatever you did is on there.
Your digital
Um,
footprint matters.
yeah, your digital footprint matters, especially if you're setting up a digital first or digital something, right?
Mm.
So just think, some things you don't need to say. A friend of mine once came to me and gave me the same advice, and said, "Look, Nige, you are the head of 26 Recharge, you're the founder, da da da. You don't need to say that. You don't need to say that because I can't remember what I was saying. Government already knows that." Okay, but if you say it, your voice carries weight. Basically, be careful with what you say. That'll be the first thing. The second thing I would say is to be intentional about setting up, the organization, the company. So when I say be intentional, I'm talking about getting the whole branding thing together, making sure that whatever it's called on Instagram is the same as it's called on Facebook, as the same as it's called, by the domain name, secure all those digital assets and make sure that you've protected the agency or whatever it is that you're setting up, right? That'll be, be very intentional so that, people like to copy, especially good ideas. So you don't want people to copy and buy the domain and you haven't bought it and you haven't secured it. So be intentional. Really think through what the thing stands for, right? So if you've decided that I'm setting up a social media management agency, just think it through. What kind of client do I want? What kind of client do I not want? What sort of campaigns do I want to be associated with? Do I believe in their brand? Do I believe in what they do? Really think it through, right? And I would also say, lastly, think and prepare for the tough times.
That's very key.
Yeah, take the wins. Take the wins. I don't like to think of them as tough times anymore. I like to think of them as lessons, right? Instead of being all down in the dumps, oh, I can't believe this is happening. Oh, this is so terrible. My ancestors have forgotten me. No, 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 right? Ask yourself, what's the lesson here, right? So it's what I'm speaking about is your mindset. There are many times 263 almost fell over, many times, right? And I almost threw the towel in so many times. And it's only
Wow.
now that I want to tell the story now. There were people who were around me, who supported, who reminded me, you see, who reminded me why I set it up in the first place, right? That included my wife. I remember when I was hosting these events, right? And I was the moderator because it was cheap to get me than to get a guy you had to pay money for, right?
Because you're the
I'm trying to,
founder, so you must as well do your thing.
I quickly learned using the University of YouTube how to moderate, how to talk, how to interview
Mm-hmm.
people. I did so many Harvard free courses on media and stuff. I don't have the degree, but I did the course. Like I said, the University of YouTube is great, for learning things. But one of the things my wife did was to give me feedback after each event to say, you know what, you did this really, really well. You did this really, really badly. And so I got better and better at it. Beneath all of this actually is actually a shy person. And so 263 helped me to come out of my shell and to speak in front of people. And it's not complicated. Now I can speak in front of a room. I can I'll articulate my thoughts reasonably well, I think. And so I think it's important, and I say this to mean find a support structure around you. There are going to be some tough times, and you're going to feel like giving up, and you need to have strategies in place. Don't have one big client who you rely on, because if they don't pay you, then
You're
you're
done.
screwed. Yeah, you're done. But have a support structure around you, whether it's your partner, your friends, your mom and dad, whoever you have around you, and those people are going to remind you. And one of the things that I did was I went to my wife and I said, listen, I'm going to feel like giving up, but I need you, of all the people, to remind me why we started this thing. And so every so often, payroll is tough. The economy is doing what it's doing. Mugabe, when he was still alive, he said something, the economy would shift. And oh man, he said that at the UN General Assembly. Oh, why would you do that? Right? you know, um, he would say something, but it would have a knock-on effect at home. I needed the team around me to support. So that's what I would say to a younger me, and all the young people out there who have dreams. And we need those agencies and all those things to come up, because we are a young continent. Yeah, a lot of these guys are digital first, digital natives, and us guys not so much.
I think we're still very much digital natives, if you ask me. I like to consider myself as one. Mhm. But
Yeah.
it's been fun. It's been very enlightening listening to you, Nigel. I think that what you've done is really incredible. I think that you have built a legacy not just in Zimbabwe in the media space, but in African media generally. I think you have put down some really great roots, built something wonderful. And I liked how that you have stepped away from it and let the company just grow on its own.
Mm,
So it's a
yeah.
testament to, to how good the work you've done is. Because sometimes when you find people build, platforms or businesses and they can't let it go, their hands must be in it, 247. It just shows that you haven't built people, built them
Yeah.
well enough that you can trust them with it. But you've done that, and that's really
No, thank
admirable.
you.
So, thank you for
No.
being on Minding Your Business Africa podcast.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
You've been listening to the Minding Your Business Africa podcast. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and rate us on your streaming platforms. Minding Your Business Africa is produced by Africa Talks Network. Our executive producers are Fola Folayan and Nelly Kalu. Royalty-free music provided by Melody Loops. Mixing and mastering by Fola Folayan.